Hey, buddy.
Hey, man, how's it going?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
It's good to talk to you. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it sure has. I feel like the last time we were sitting down across from each other in the studio.
We were, yeah. We did I guess that was the last record. In fact, I was kind of I was laughing as I went back and just kind of skimmed it for what we were talking about then, and it was funny because back then you and I were talking about dating and how you just didn't think that it was going to work out for you.
Oh, well, I guess things have changed a little bit.
Things have changed. We're really excited to have Dawes back in Louisville, April 21st. You're playing the Brown Theater. It's going to be good to have you guys back here behind a new record that, of course, everyone loves saying on the air too. With "We're All Gonna Die." You've made it really fun for the DJs. That's what you've done.
I'm glad you see it that way, because some people were like, "Isn't that a tad morbid?" So to us, it was always kind of. I mean, obviously, we don't want to downplay our own thing, something like mortality, but at the same time, I do feel like it has a certain ridiculousness to it that we hoped would make it fun.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you talk about it in the other interviews about, when you have that mantra, it sort of takes the pressure off, like the old adage of "don't sweat the small things," or something like that.
Yeah, and that's really it's just a different way of saying that. I guess the most effective one for my own trip is trying to be mindful of that, especially when we do something as sort of that is impressionistic and lofty as making music.
I started using it just for everything. If I want to get out of a situation, any situation, to turn around and be like, you know what, we're all going to die.
Right. So how could someone hold a grudge? Right.
I feel like personally, though, it's probably taken on a new meaning with everything that's been happening out around the world lately. And I know it's no means a political statement or anything, but again, kind of using it in a new context.
Yeah, and it wasn't lost on us. I mean, the album came out at the beginning of a pretty intense presidential election. So no matter what side you sat on with all that, I feel like a phrase like that, whether or not attached to music by Dawes or otherwise, seemed to have a particular resonance all throughout 2016.
Well, I was kind of looking at it, and so a few weeks ago, I was talking with Guy Garvey from the band Elbow, and I'd mentioned how it seems like everybody I talk to is writing some sort of either a political record or a reflective record or something like that, and he wasn't, and I said, oh, it's because you fell in love, and you were in a love bubble. And so none of this has penetrated you. And I was wondering, it was like, maybe it was sort of the same thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a big part of my year last year. And in a way, even though, I look at some of our records and they'll be like, entire sides of an album or something that's pretty close to dealing with the same thing. And I look at so many of my favorite albums, and while some are examples of that, like something like Blood on the Tracks, which seems very much like a record about a relationship falling apart. For the most part, I really like when a songwriter is able to kind of cover more ground and discuss things beyond their romantic life. Because then when they do go to that, it becomes that much more heavy. Like a record by a guy like Warren Zevon or John Prine, these guys that can take these more global approaches or these broader views, or talk about things that seem so, in some cases, off limits for songwriters. And then to be able to bring it back around to songs like, French Inhaler or Far From Me, and then I feel like your heart is thus like that much more broken. And so with We're All Gonna Die, despite it being a product of feeling in love and that becoming a big part of my life, that it's strange. Like it really shed a lot of light on what it means to be a writer. There's a Philip Roth quote saying like, don't marry a writer because they're voyeuristic and indiscreet, and that applies for songwriters too. And I feel like anything that was happening in my life before my new relationship with Mandy, it was sort of a game. And it didn't matter who got hurt or whose laundry got aired. I mean, I tried to be fair minded when I would write these songs, but if something was going on in my personal life, that for all I cared, it was going on in my musical life as well. Right. And then this was the first time where it's like, oh, I want to learn to be the kind of writer that can probe those depths and get to the bottom of things without putting myself on blast, without taking things that are sacred in my life and just sharing them, without at least without me considering the reason for it. I think that's a big part of the whole writing trip. That is something that I've tried to be mindful of as I've gotten older, where sometimes it's so easy to just pick up a guitar and talk about how bummed you are, or how she broke your heart, or how you're a victim of something, and then leave it at that. And that's going to work. That's going to affect some people.
Yeah.
But I feel like to go to those places and then to offer something at the end of it, to try to say, and here's why I'm talking about this with you. That's the real. Those are the real badass.
I mean, you've always been a great writer, and I know that's kind of one of the things for any creative person is after a while, you want to strive for something else. I mean, nobody wants to get stagnant and to switch it up and find a new formula, or at least a bit of a new direction of how to do it. I know that's got to be part of the conversation. So
yeah, I mean that's and also, like, a lot of people talk about these examples of artists doing that, and they say I feel like whether it's the Stones going from early Satisfaction type rock and roll songs all the way to Some Girls and Tattoo You, or Paul Simon going from Simon and Garfunkel to Graceland, or the Beatles doing what they did. I mean, it's not only common, but it's essential, is the way I like to look at it, for an artist to continue to challenge themselves, or else they won't stay in the conversation. I feel like if Bob Dylan made those first 4 records and of protest songs, more or less, and then continued to write in that same voice, and he was always having the acoustic guitar and the harmonica, and that was it, then I feel like he would have gone the way of other amazing writers like Phil Ochs or something, where you don't really talk about them. But the fact that he was able to change his voice, change his approach, change the presentation, it has kept him in the conversation for this long. And I'm not saying that like Dawes has found a way to stay relevant. I don't really feel like we've ever been particularly relevant, but I feel like at least for us to feel rejuvenated and fresh and excited, it requires us to not say that worked before, let's just do it again, because I feel like that would depress us very fast.
And I know that's been a big part of the story on this record too, is that it does have a different sound. And while I've also read that you guys didn't specifically go for the sound, in the way it happened, I guess that had to be on your mind though, that you had to do something to shake it up.
I guess like the things that were kind of I don't know, intentional is a weird word, but things that were, I guess, part of just the plan without us thinking it was going to create some drastically different result was more in the approach. Like I feel like after making All Your Favorite Bands, we had made this record that as close as we could, we represented what we can do on a stage as a band and how we interact, whether it's the drums and the guitar during a guitar solo, or the way I play guitar and the way I sing at the same time. Like all this stuff was like, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we've always done, and this is our best. We've always wanted to really capture that in a recording, and this is the best we could have done at that. And a lot of people ask, like, cool, so does that mean you're going to make records like this from now on? And the answer is, of course not. And so the same way that Stories Don't End led us to All Your Favorite Bands, without us, like, again, there was no, like, mission statement. It was really just like, oh, like, playing the guitar while I sing the vocal sounds fun. I don't know if that's going to, like, come off as some philosophical shift for the band. That's just what I want to do. And with this one, we had this new keyboardist, Lee Pardini, and with the record that we made, I wrote these songs and sort of thought, I played a lot of guitar and it was blast, and now it's exciting to kind of hold this acoustic guitar and see what the band does around it. And so certain songs ended up with really cool keyboard breaks or really cool, string breaks in a song like We're All Gonna Die, or just no solo at all. And so I feel like by me stepping back as a guitarist, it opened up the playing field to really featuring the keyboards and the bass and elements of this band that have always been there, but maybe haven't gotten a chance to really present themselves. So I really dig that what We're All Gonna Die became, and it was organic. Yeah. And that's not to say that like I listen to all of our records and think like I can't hear the difference. Of course they sound different to me, but like to me, We're All Gonna Die sounds different than anything that came before it, the same way that Nothing Is Wrong sounds different than any of our other records, or All Your Favorite Band sounds different than any of our other records. But I like to believe that rather than abandoning the identity that they've all kind of helped arrange and prop up, it's sort of embracing it and just trying to find another side of it. You hear so many stories of bands that like they hate their own music or their own past as a band, and they won't play any of their older material, and they only play the new record. Like, that's really not the case with us. You know, we still are. I mean, obviously we'd make changes on any of our records if given the chance, but we still love all of the music, and we love that it's sort of, they're all representative of what we do. And as time goes on, that sort of identity kind of continues to expand.
And there's so many great things to compliment on this record too. I mean, the looseness, especially in the piano, which is a nice contrast, because when you're working with some electronic sounds like you guys did, you don't expect to have a looseness there, and you guys were able to balance that. And I love the way the piano plays with the bass on Less Than 5 Miles Away, and even how the title track is almost like a soft rock song, which is a perfect contradiction to the title,
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. And that was a big part of what we were going for. Like with this, I feel like this record was the first time where we started to explore the relationship between the lyric and the music itself. Certain decisions like having girls saying, "Oh man, can you picture it?" And they can potentially, depending on how you listen to it, can kind of create this sort of mocking tone. It's not a coincidence that that's sung by women for a song called "Picture of a Man," where this guy is kind of going down this road of like discussing with himself how he feels about himself as a man in this world. Yeah. And then a song like "We're All Gonna Die," like along with what you're saying, like we wanted to take this lyric and this title, "We're All Gonna Die," and try to create the most beautiful track on the album, and try to arrange it so by the end there's these strings and these melodies, while there's the cascading vocal of all of us singing "We're All Gonna Die" over on top of each other. And the juxtaposition of that was something that was at the very least funny to us, if not, something more.
Right. You brought up Picture of a Man. That's sort of a theme that you played with around on previous records too, like this idea of manhood. It's not the first time that you've went there, and I was sort of curious about, if that's been realized with you as well.
That's a cool question. I mean, like with certain songs like "Coming Back to a Man" or "If I Wanted Someone," that was definitely a subject that I've gone to. I guess I've never really thought about it, but it's for sure the case. I mean, even when I wrote a song like "If I Wanted Someone," I got nervous that it was going to come across the wrong way. If that song's about anything, there's a line in the verse that says, "While you lean into the echoes, without raising a hand, like, oh woman, help me see it like it is." Like, if anything, it defers to a female perspective, and it's an admission of how these bumbling guys can just kind of often fall short, and I don't know, at least in my case, like the true spirit of female guidance is actually the key to feeling okay with everything. Yeah. And "Picture of a Man" I guess it is along those lines, where it's I think there's such a funny duality to a man's kind of trip in this world, where there's almost this unspoken requirement for this sort of bravado.
Like the line "what it means to be a man" that you've used before too. Like, I find that. But
at the same time, like, the reality is we're riddled with insecurities, and we probably have less of an idea as to what's going on than most people in the room. And so I think that, I guess, at least that's my own experience. So I guess that juxtaposition is something that I've always kind of wrestled with a little bit. And I guess it's popping up yet again.
Yeah, it's a cool theme. I don't know that a lot of people's tackling it the way you do. And I'll wrap up by saying that as a compliment to all of your songs. You always take such a unique perspective on your storytelling that, we can't help but sit and listen and pay attention. And I love it. And I love this record as much as I've loved any of your records.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
It was really great talking to you today. Again, Dawes, April 21st at the Brown Theater. I can't wait to see you guys here very soon.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
All right, dude. Well, take care, and we'll see you.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Bye.